because we know everyone that's here is here and Jeff Burrick will not be here, so. Call the meeting to order, Harbor Commission meeting August 27th, 2025. We have a quorum, again, Jack Burrick is excused. Are there any changes or additions to the agenda? All right. Any correspondence?
No.
Okay. So, approval of the minutes. Did I recall the minutes?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
You did not.
All right, good. I didn't recall that. So we now have no minutes to approve, so I'll go ahead and go along. Do we have any public input? Anyone on the big screen?
No.
All right. The liaison officer report is Jack Burrick led, and I do have a report that he wrote out so nicely. I don't see anything here that's pertinent actually to all the action of the harbor that he wrote about. Sustainable Northwest presented a long detailed PowerPoint on drinking water in the future of such. Willamette Partnership out of Portland presented a long detailed PowerPoint including Glennie, which apparently will, about sanitation issues. The sheriff gave a report and was told that they're addressing the electrical issues on the dock. Slip assignments are still a work in progress. And a brief discussion about the tsunami warning system. So thank you, Jack, for your report. Anybody have any questions? Moving right along, we'll move into the harbor master and the city admin report.
You want to hear from me first?
Sure do.
There's not really much to report for the month of August. We got a power issue on dock 2 that we've gotten resolved. Broken conduit was causing a short throughout the whole dock. Got that taken care of Monday.
Can I ask a question about that? So what did you end up doing with it?
I'm sorry?
Did you have to replace the whole conduit or is it fixed or is it just a patch?
It's fixed. I had to just come out and fix it. They had to replace the whole conduit and he added a strut for support on that particular junction. So what I think caused it was because that particular junction tees down and goes underneath the water in the dock. I think it just was a bad spot. There was no supports there, and so a little too much action caused it to break, and it put some stress on the wires, probably got some moisture in there. That was what he repaired first. Now, they put all that stuff together while the gangway was on the in the parking lot, because you can't reach it from the water. So it's kind of something that they just, I don't want to say overlooked, but didn't foresee happening because they didn't understand where that particular part was going at the time. But we've now added the support, so we should be okay going forward. That if we end up having a little bit more problems or any other problems with that particular spot, then we still have more spots to add more support.
Same thing gonna happen on dock 3?
It shouldn't.
Forward?
No, it shouldn't. This is a little bit different situation with dock 2 because the gangway being so long and how it just kind of, those light boxes that are on the side of it, the conduit just runs down the side, but right at the bottom, just almost out of reach actually from the dock is where it darts down and ties into the box. And that part that goes down underneath the dock is just not an ideal situation for any kind of surges or.
And it's a 90, right, the rest of them are all pretty much a straight line.
What's that?
It's a 90, because the 90 degree.
Yeah, well, there's a box past it too, but it just drops down and it's a flex line that goes underneath. So we shouldn't have any more issues with it at all, but we've got a couple other.
So it was in the water?
It does, it actually feeds down underneath the dock, runs along just underneath the side of the dock and then shoots over to the panel.
The piece that broke was on the side of the dock. The piece that separated was from the T.
Oh, as a result of that, it got in the water.
No, there's a junction at that spot where in order to tie into the dock, it has to run down underneath the edge of the dock and then run underneath the box. So
It's a T, so this part runs to the water. This part is what separates.
it's the conduit that lights those light boxes as you walk down the dock.
Yeah.
Well, right close to the bottom, that's where it junctions down and then goes underneath the dock and ties into the breaker cabinet on the dock. Well, that right there is where it had the weight and it broke the conduit. So that problem's been addressed, so we shouldn't have any more problems with that. As far as, I started moving a couple of boats around, annual mortgage holders now that have been waiting for spots to open up and for this new round of slip replacement or slip changes to go through. At this point, I'm still looking at who I need to either pull off the list or continue to move in the harbor, but it'll take me another week before I finally make that decision. We've got people now that are already deciding to go to Astoria, so we're not rushing. Nobody's calling me, grabbing a whole lot about doing it quick, so. Other than that,
So you're saying now, okay, I just wanna make sure I understand that. The slip assignments, the people that wanted to change different slips, is that what you're saying right now?
the second slip assignment is open.
That second
Okay.
round, that
Okay.
ended August the 12th.
Yeah, so have we been able to, put any people that are on our waiting list into, slips?
Not yet. That'll be done this week. The rest of it will be finished up this week. I'm gonna look at it and decide what we got moving around. Most of the reason is I've got a couple boats that are, a couple people that are just, either they're having a little bit of issues with health reasons or things like that, so I've given everybody an extra week before I start making final moves, but I've already moved 2 boats. And they were ones that I put in for slip changes at the very beginning, so. And they were ones that I needed to move, but we got a little bit more to go, but we'll be finished up this week.
I mean, the season's pretty much, winding down at this point, so I just like to see if there's any movement for those people on the wait list again.
Well, there was some major movement before we did the second round. So
Okay.
doing the second round now, it's gonna be more about playing with what I have available.
Yeah.
Who I need to move in the harbor and who I need to pull off the list.
Kim, I don't know if I should ask you or him about what did we decide to do about people that have mortgage slips that haven't had boats in there for like 2 or 3
Oh, I've
years.
started sinking their boats already. I'm just kidding. No, we've got a couple people that haven't brought their boat in, and the reason is, we've already contacted these individuals, they're having health issues, things like that, or they're having their boat work on, but we have yet to discuss what we're gonna do moving forward with that.
Well, we do have an ordinance.
I would like Carla to review the
So
ordinance.
I went
with
back
you.
and
She
kind of reread that, and the way that it is, when it talks about boats being inoperable, it's talking about boats that have been brought into the harbor and being inoperable, not like if someone pulls their boat out to do repairs. So it's a little bit, so if you're wanting to address, someone who's not bringing their boat in for a significant amount of time, that's not really being addressed in our ordinance. It's more about giving the opportunity if someone can bring in another boat if they're, have a significant amount of time, but it's in the harbor that where we put the limitation of the no more than 90 days, it's if their boat is in the harbor. So it's a little bit different than someone who's got their boat out for repair.
I appreciate you looking at that,
Yeah.
and that makes sense, but
Those people who have not brought their boats back, are they keeping their, paying their bills up to date?
Yeah, so I wanna say we had 4 people that relinquished this mortgage season.
Yeah,
But yeah, everyone else has continued to pay their mortgage,
Okay.
yeah.
Thank you.
my only reason I was taking a look at it, just to, people that have been on the wait list for so long. it'd be
Sure,
nice-
yeah.
Nice too, but having those open slips sometimes gives you some leeway to use a slip where there's no boat, right, if you need to or
Yes,
whatever.
yeah, we do have that right to do that. So we're almost like we're double dipping a bit.
Mhm.
But yeah, we do have that right to do that. They just don't have the right to do it as a mortgage holder to sublease their space.
Yeah.
But we can.
The folks that are moving to Astoria, they're leaving for
Oh,
business.
there's a couple of guys that
They're coming back.
there's a couple of guys that pulled out to go to Astoria. Most of them are like a transient. I got a couple of guys that are gonna be gone for just a little bit to go up there. I don't remember which one it is now. I deal with so many people on a regular basis.
So it's not gonna open up another,
No, No, at this point, I think we've had, like you said, 4 people that have relinquished their slip for this
Did
year.
the people on that waiting list snap up those slips or?
So those have not been assigned yet. So what was assigned by Dave would have been slips that have been vacant because of the prior mortgage seasons where people had relinquished and we weren't assigning because of the harbor project. So that's when he brought in a few at the beginning, prior to the season starting. And now we're looking at, now we've got the 4 relinquished slips and looking at people that are requesting those
Yeah.
slip reassignments. And he'll be figuring out the best way to assign those slips.
So how many are still on the waiting list after the 4 get assigned?
Depends on which category, but, no, quite a few, I mean,
D is the
you
most,
know, yeah, considerably. I think, I don't know, off the top of my head, I think there's probably 5 or 6.
It's shrinking, that's good.
It is getting smaller.
Right on.
I think we're kind of at the point now where we've only got a couple of category C, but nobody out there, will probably even be pulled if I, maybe we'll pull anybody out there, so.
Yeah, so right now, before we assign these 4 spots, we have 8 people on the list in category A, 4 people in category B, and 2 people in category C that continue to be on the wait list.
Which I think is where I'm having to be very careful about how I assign it, because most of the people that are in category A, I can't necessarily just pull them all off. And most of my empty spots are on dock 4. But there's just not as much room there as you would think, because we gotta be very specific on the boat size and, you know, the length and everything, especially where my open slips are, they're at the end of the dock where it's kind of a high traffic zone. So I gotta have to really carefully play with slip movements or slip requests compared to what I can pull off the list to fill these 4 vacant spots.
Well, as long as we, you know, my hope is just to stay on top of it, you know.
Of course.
I mean, it's revenue for one thing, and just, I just like to see people see that we're really trying to accommodate who we can.
So far, everybody that I've talked to is working out. I've talked to a couple of people that were also trying to not just assign those slips, but we're trying to use people that aren't gonna be here for extended amounts of time, or any amount of time. I get a hold of them, and we get recorded dates so that we can also use those for training. Because believe it or not, I still have people that are calling for, you know, a week here, a week there, or a day here, so.
Did the other guy besides the Sunrise, the other category C guy, did he ever come up? The one that was second on the waiting list behind the Sunrise?
Was that,
I'm not sure who you're talking
Cause I thought we were supposed to have 2 category Cs.
Oh, you mean on the
That
north
that
side
could
dock
do
1?
permanent mortgage.
He decided that he wanted, I think he said he wanted to stay in Newport,
Oh,
yeah.
so.
so he
Right
can
now-
There
right
were a
now, the
couple of
way-
people that were up for,
Yeah,
and then decided not to.
right now, the way
like
I have,
there's just spot on the waiting list?
Yeah,
Or
like,
is he
yeah,
still
like, yeah.
So it's either you
Yeah,
take
because
it or
there
go.
was one guy that was actually ahead of, you're right, that was ahead of
Yeah.
Tyler, and he was one of them that got a slip, that
oh, yeah,
really was gonna take it and then decided not to.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, he was the one who decided to stay, so.
And he'd been on there for a long time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the way I have it dock one laid out, that's the way it's gonna stay, and, you know, depending on what happens next year. and all that
Did the Triumph move over to dock 1?
I'm sorry?
Did the Triumph move to dock 1?
It did, yeah. Yeah, that was he put in a slip request change just about every opportunity he had, and that was actually a calculated move, so, for the safety of boats but other than that, we have quotes coming in for dock 1. We did change it a little bit in the sense of trying to have a quote come in just for transitions. Because it's becoming such a hazard and something we need to address right away. So I think we've got one quote. I believe I got the email a minute before I was leaving on my Friday. So I'll have to send that in, but we've got a couple of contractors that are coming in to look at doing a fix right off the bat on the transitions, and then still getting quotes on repairs overall for dock 1. And we're still talking to the designers for the other maintenance issues that we're waiting for on the rest of the docks, the warranty issues, or I think one was a warranty issue.
But yeah, so, well, that one's been fixed now, but-
No,
Right, so the other part, and that was gonna be part of my update, is that John had got back from a vacation, I emailed him, and he hadn't heard anything from AAC, but he's gonna follow up with them. So, and that's on the fire cabinet, the rust, the lights. Reese did the lights, didn't they?
Reese did the conduit.
No, but didn't they do the gangway lights originally?
I'm not really sure if they did.
So I'm just wondering if Reese did
Yeah, they did the
electrical,
electrical.
why didn't they fix the gangway lights? So I think somebody's dropping a chat there, and whether, I don't think it's John, I think maybe Winston didn't tell Reese to go out and take a look at it, so I just need to find out. John just hasn't given me an update for the meeting, because he just got back from vacation end of last week, so, or middle of last week.
Well, I wish we all operated on John's schedule, but I'm just really concerned that, all this stuff is getting stretched out, getting
I
stretched out.
hope he would have gotten me an answer on that today, but I will, now you're gonna try to get one by the end of the week, and say, we really need to know what you're doing with your instead, so.
I did reach out to Advanced American because they were one of the companies I asked to give us a quote on dock one, because they did the work on docks 2, 3, and 4. I wanted to use the same company if we could, and he did let me know that they had a couple of 2 or 3 very large issues come up that they had to address, so they got, everything else got kind of pushed back a little bit, so that might be part of the problem, but I'm still nagging them, because whether it's part of the, you know, in the grand scheme of their issues or not, we do need it addressed, so. I'm bugging them.
I just don't want it to get, all of a sudden, then it's like out of warranty and it's our problem, and there's a lot of things to be fixed.
I won't let it get out of warranty.
Huh?
I won't let it get out of warranty.
Yeah, thankfully, we've brought this issue to their attention well before it could get close to that.
I just wanna make sure that, you know, Dave is looking at make sure there's other issues so that we can bring up things
Yeah.
before.
Amy, those questions.
Well, I wanted to backtrack a little bit. So dock one, there's some people coming and looking and trying to figure out those transitions. Do you know how far out that would be?
We're having, let me just be honest, we're having a hard time getting people to respond to us,
Yeah.
getting them to come out, getting them to respond to us. I told him to tell AAC, and he might have something in there, whoever, that if they don't get something soon, we'll move on. I get tired of these people, and that's what I usually tell them, we'll move on.
So my thought and comment on this is you'll fix them, they come back up. You know, they get one spot that's there, the next. And you know it's a hazard. I mean, it's a big tripping hazard there. But in my field, when we knew that there was a safety issue, you did the long-term fix, temporary fix, and on the temporary fix, I'm thinking, you see these standard tapered doormats that are about as big as this table long. You had to buy a couple of them and try to just lay them down there so that piece of stuff isn't a stumbler there. I mean, you gotta try something in the short term, you know, because as you're saying, these contractors, if they don't
they're
even wanna
being
talk to
paid.
you.
It's very frustrating.
Yeah.
It is, especially since.
I don't know, will that work?
Yeah,
I think it would.
It's gonna work very temporarily, so those conveyor belts that are down there now covering the transitions, they're very thick and very hardy, and they still rip through every screw that I crawl around and put in. We need
To me, if you get a longer transition, it might have a chance to flex. I mean, I see doormats next to boats on boarding steps there, they haven't moved, they kind of work. It would be worth $100 and set out a couple, see if they work. At least you can say you tried.
It's not my purview to think about that, so
I think it'd be great.
I would give it a shot if you had that suggestion. I don't know if we would wanna try to fasten it down, but we'd also have to do something with the lip of it, because that would be a tripping hazard. Just a longer spot.
There's a
Oh, they're
doormat
tapered?
right
Well, there you
there.
go.
There's a doormat right
Well,
over
there you go, if they're tapered, I just keep thinking of a regular doormat, but no, if they're tapered,
no, Pete, that's a great idea.
I think that's a great idea.
And it may turn into a permanent fix.
If it's long enough, they can take the
If
stress.
it works,
Yeah, like,
And
you
you
know,
gotta be
some
a nice
industrial
worker.
ones.
We gotta, we have to do something.
Like what they would put on a load truck.
And, it's gonna be, how many transitions do we have on top of it?
I couldn't tell you how fast.
4.
4 or 5?
It's gonna be
4?
4.
Okay, 5.
More than 4, isn't it?
Less than $150, you can get 4
Maybe
minutes.
5.
I'm not complaining about the price.
No, I'm just
Nobody
saying.
had made that suggestion and it wasn't something I would have
What
thought
I'm
of.
saying,
Let's
I
do
agree
it.
with Beatty, do it, and then.
Let's do it.
Because, whatever's done, when we do change dock one, we put the new grids in and do all that stuff, then they can do a permit.
All right, Harbor Master, go find us some mats.
Well, believe it or not, I spend my days off thinking about this, whether I want to or not, because it's in my brain, because I know what's gonna happen Thursday morning, I'm gonna hear about it at some point, so it is something that I've been thinking about, and it's a valid idea, so I will look into it, see what I can do for a more permanent, temporary fix.
I think it's an excellent idea and I wish it had come up sooner than tonight.
About the time you fix those things and get back up the ramp, they're already coming apart. So
Know we can.
Yeah, the screws become more, they become more heavy than the actual mats.
Yeah, if
we gotta do something.
you got the right length of mat, it may not need to screw it down.
Right,
I think
exactly.
just
The
lay
weight
it
of
down.
the whole thing.
I think
Yeah.
just lay it down, do it.
And get the Vulcan mats. Well,
Well, that's when your face black.
Oh, yeah, that's even a better idea.
Look into it this week
Okay.
and see what I can find.
All right.
But I think it would be good for us to be able to see these outfits that are wanting to fix that problem. It'd be good if we could see that too before you approve anything.
Yes, it
Just
would.
because, it's one of those things, they're probably gonna rake us over the coals for whatever they do, and it shouldn't be that difficult to fix.
Well, one of the things that was brought up to me about resurfacing the dock and doing some of those repairs is that you start getting into more of an engineering aspect, because when you take, essentially, we're talking about redoing everything except for the floats of the dock. So, one of the contractors had brought to me that we need to look at, maybe like talking to P&D and looking at more of an engineering aspect and things like that. So yes, it would be more difficult to have a company like that come and do a fix on just that part. It's probably gonna be a little bit pricey. But I think a solution like what we suggested, and if we could find something like that, that would be a more stronger and suitable temporary fix until we got to the point of redoing the dock, and I think that's
I'm
great.
sure Mr. Amazon could set us up with some mats, but.
Did you say Amazon?
Go on Amazon, and see what they've got, yeah.
Cash and carry. or
Or
even
cash,
Ace.
I don't know if Cash and Carry has them, or yeah, Ace might have them.
Yeah.
So for that, back to the whatever that, what we're gonna do to fix dock one, do you have to do RFP for that or what?
We don't know how much it's gonna cost yet. We can't even get to that point of what it's gonna cost, and I'd rather not
Just
get
get
it
a
off our
general.
RFP.
Yeah.
They won't even give us a general number. I'm like, I don't even know if it's gonna be within what I can do with, I have to go out for an RFP, we have to go out for a full loan. I don't know.
But I'll say it again, I don't know what's wrong with the decking on dock one.
Well, we're not even
It's in
talking
good
about that,
shape.
we're just
I know,
talking about the transition.
But that's come up, that replacing the whole decking on dock one, I mean, it's
It's
in
because of the
pretty,
slipperiness, that was the only reason, but if you guys don't care about the slipperiness, then I won't care about the slipperiness. But it's a safety issue, so,
no, it's the transitions, that's the safety issue.
right,
I
but
don't see
slippery
it
decks
slippery.
and docks are what I understand, because people tell me that those mats are in place because the docks are slippery. So on one, so the mats are in place because docks are slippery on one. Roy told me this last year, that the reason, because we were talking about moving all those mats off of docks once, and he said, if the dock is really slippery a lot of times, so you don't wanna remove all those mats, because there are people use them to get on the boat,
Well,
so.
it's when you're stepping up and down, but not necessarily on a flat surface,
And that's fine,
you know?
we do have to look at something about those pedestals at some point, whether that means a full deck replacement, it could have to be both. But those pedestals will need to be replaced, because we keep
Yeah,
spending a lot of money fixing
yes.
them.
I did talk to Reese about giving me a quote for the pedestal, because they've done electrical on the other 3 docks. And the goal is to try to get one company that does all,
Yeah.
as opposed to having to call different people, so.
So we may come back with just a quote just to get the pedestals, and if they can do that without messing with the decking, great.
If Tad's telling us the docks are fine, then I say we save some money.
I say we save some money
Well,
too.
Yeah, I mean,
But we're
And
talking,
nobody better complain about slippery docks.
they can pull that decking up and put it right back down into place for the pedestals.
There you go.
There's no reason why
We'll
they
see what,
can't do that.
we'll see what they say, but it's.
we're talking about replacing the pedestals as well as the wiring, not just what, wiring of the pedestal.
So in the quote that I asked for was resurfacing the dock, changing the pedestals, changing the guards for the piling from square to round, like docks 2, 3, and 4, and the transitions. That's that's what the original quote was for, so that's where I'm going with that.
Okay, but it would seem to me if you're gonna change that, the piling
Colors.
around, the
That's
colors,
called.
yeah.
They call them guides, they call them.
Whatever, however you wanna call it, if you're gonna do that, and you gotta cut into the existing deck, if you replace, you know, if you replace, anyhow, I would look at all that, because when you did, before you decide that we don't need to replace the deck.
That'd be one of those
Which is-
questions like, well, to do this, you're gonna have to replace the deck.
Which is exactly why he suggested that it becomes more of an engineering problem as opposed to just a temporary fix kind of a thing, so.
Yeah.
That's something we need to look into, but we got some good ideas, we'll look into it this week and see if we can't come up with pretty quick.
Beanie.
So let me just, my hand hurts.
All right.
No.
So does mine.
Barbie wave.
Do that earlier today.
All right, thank you, I appreciate the update. Did we want to talk about the,
Oh, I have one other thing before you move on to my area. At one of the meetings, it was mentioned that, I think Commissioner, Robinson has spoken to somebody over at the Coast Guard regarding the Coast Guard coming up with some kind of plan in the next 2 years to do the dredging. Well, I actually finally got to speak to the Amber, the station chief, and she said, oh, no, what is it? They do not have any official plans for dredging operation in the near future. They have recently discussed the need of dredging with their facility area manager, who would assist with getting the right parties involved and working through the proper channels. So they're not currently working on anything, they're not even thinking about a plan. They're hoping that what I told her, and I explained to her what I told her, is that I'm happy to keep a facility asset manager in the future with knowledgeable. But Sam has no awareness of anybody trying to do anything else beside the plan she's trying to get together with Garibaldi and with Depoe next year. Well, I was at a meeting last week and Amber called me and I called her back, but she was having some, what'd she call them, delegates, right? From Merkley and Wyden's office, their reps were there, and she said, well, what can I tell them? And I said, well, you can tell them to get the money for dredging is what you can tell them.
oh my gosh, I wish we could have.
So, I have no idea if it would, she wasn't inviting anybody to attend, she just said, what do you want? And I said, well, we need dredging. And I said, you need dredging, so she said that was definitely on her list to discuss. And I said, so the Corps is running into financial problems, which is the only reason holding it up so far, that I'm aware of, and they'll tell them that they're deep, so. And I haven't had a chance to tell Kathy, but I'm gonna have Kathy reach out to Merkley and Wyden's again, since Amber would have, so we'll just compound it by having Kathy say, by the way, I didn't charge before, so.
Did she want to write a letter for us? That would be awesome.
She has not, she knows she could write a letter, she has not offered again, she has not said anything about it, but she said she would talk to the delegates. She said, I will speak to it as much as I can, meaning I'm sure there are limits to what she can say, but without having her hire us rule in on it, but she did say she would talk about it, so, and I said, well, I think that is everybody's primary concern with the harbor right now, so, but as it stands right now, the Corps has no plans, they are concerned, but they have no plans to do any kind of dredging on their own, or what that looks like, so.
But we're on the
No, the Coast, I'm sorry, the Coast Guard has.
I was gonna say, wait a minute.
Thank you, it's a secret.
We are
The
on.
Coast Guard has no plans, but we are still
On
on
the schedule.
schedule for 2026 in conjunction with Garibaldi.
Okay. All right, good.
So
Here we go.
the Coast Guard's pretty much dropped it.
There, as far as I know, and that's, I don't know what Amber told the delegates, I don't know what she told them. I do know that it's been told to her several times about writing a letter, and that would be helpful. I haven't heard that she's planning on doing that. But we're still on the schedule for 26.
We need to make sure that we don't fall off that schedule, so we
I'm
need
not
to keep the pressure, no.
Oh, yeah, I'm watching it.
When I say we, it's a collective, we need to make sure that we keep the pressure.
Leave me, Sam knows how important this is and how we're watching it. Because I've explained to her, she's seen pictures, she did a tour, she knows. But it would have been helpful had the Coast Guard done the letter, but I can't make them do it, they kind of do their own thing, but.
I've been taking buckets of sand at low tide and putting them in.
We're outside the Coast Guard office. So that was the only other thing that I had on there, unless there was something else, I think we covered it.
Yeah, I just was wondering about hearing back from John again about the weight distribution.
Oh, that's gonna come, I told him about it, he called me Monday, because he was confused about what I was exactly looking for, so we talked about it. I hoped, again, he would do it for tonight, because you guys are meeting tonight, but obviously he didn't get it done, so.
It shouldn't be that difficult.
Huh?
Shouldn't be that difficult.
No.
And you were referring to the crab pots.
Well, I just wanna know,
Yes.
you know, right now, they want all the pots down on the end of the dock, why is that so?
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah,
we gotta have that.
well, that would be helpful,
That
but
question, yeah.
so one of the concerns he did mention to me, and I think that that's something worth thinking about and worth making sure, is that we have set a limit of every category that gets a certain number of crab pots.
Yes.
He's been concerned that if we start, like we say, okay, crab pots all along the docks, and people start loading up the docks with crab pots, beyond, just say we don't have any kind of number, which we know that there were charter companies bringing 12, 13, 15, crab pots, that he was worried about that, because whatever number he gives you, it would be a moot point by then, because people are loading up on crab pots, so I would suggest we stay with the numbers.
Yeah, well, the ordinance says 10.
Right. I would suggest we don't try to change that even if he's.
If what we have decided on the number of crab pots doesn't change.
And that's why I said, I don't think they're
And-
talking
and
about
when-
changing
Because we're
that
not gonna
number.
go back to the 300 and some pots that were on the old
And
dock.
that was his
And that was
concern.
only because just habit, and people just left them there because nobody told them to get them off the dock.
So he also did say that a couple of things to think about is that you'll require more mats to protect the docks.
That's, well, that's.
So he does support that we should be charging people to store crab pots on the docks to help cover any kind of cost.
Well, that's not really his
He was
function.
just we were talking things out, but he said he said you were gonna have to pay, he said that's what he's gonna figure out, there's gonna be maintenance costs to that. We talked about the decking, he's gonna get me a quote, get me an idea of what's gonna cost if we have, because he said you will not be able, right at this point, technology changes all the time. But at this point, if one of the deckings, the platforms get really bad, you can't just replace some of it, you'll have to replace the whole thing, and not only are they heavy, he says, you can't get them from any manufacturers, and he's gonna figure that out, so that's part of what he's trying to give us.
Is he gonna replace the ones that are failing?
No, because they're not technically failing.
Yeah.
They're chipped, but they're perfectly fine.
Okay, and I wouldn't get into that at all. I mean,
Well, I need to know.
all we need to know from
Commissioner.
John is how much weight will the docks, other than the last three, each dock section support? That's all we want.
No, that's not all we need to know, because there is a cost to putting crab pots along the whole entire dock.
That's
I
not,
need
that's
to
not
know
his
that,
issue.
I need
His
to
issue
know-
is how many pots can each of the dock sections hold, other than the last three docks.
I need to know how much it's going to cost, because the council will wanna know what is the financial impact, if any, on maintenance on those docks.
So,
Right, but that's
That's
not,
right.
I'm trying to tell you, it's not John's
It
issue,
is
that's
he
the
knows
city's
where,
issue.
it is because he knows where to get the prices. I don't know where to
It-
get the
But the
prices.
thing is, we got
That's
the last match without his input.
but
Pardon me, commission, I am doing this way, we will get both of them, but I needed to be able to do my due diligence to provide to the council to have an estimate of what it will cost, and he did the project, he will know how to get me those costs.
But what I would like to just clarify, that's not the question we're asking him. We're asking how much weight.
I understand that, I am not
That's the
arguing
only
with you,
question.
that's the question you wanna know.
Mhm.
But there's a combination of things that I also need to know, because I can't take what you wanna know to the council without answering all of it.
We're not asking to take
We're
the
not
council.
asking
I just
to-
wanna know.
We want to know.
Oh, I think it's good for the council.
We'll get to the council
I know,
eventually.
so I'm preparing for what I know will come up. But your question will get answered, but so am I.
And that's fine.
And that's all I'm saying, so I'm not sure where we're arguing about it.
Well, we're not arguing, what we're saying
We're just
is,
asking.
We are arguing about
We're
it.
just asking for that simple
we
answer
just
to
want
that
a
question.
simple answer.
It's not going to be a
And
simple
the-
answer.
No, the simple answer for us is wait. That's all we wanna know. I understand that before it goes to the council, we're gonna have to get a lot more information.
Your
Well,
wait is not going to be a simple answer, but let's wait and see what John does. I'm gonna try to get it by the end of next week. We're not waiting to another meeting, because I've been asking.
Okay, let's move on.
Yes, please.
Okay, go ahead.
It's not gonna take any more of the matting, the matting needs to be relocated. So that there's no cost associated there.
No.
Yeah, the crab pot,
No,
because all of them are shoved into the ends of dock 3, there's what? 6 of them on the ends of
6 mats.
the last 3, yeah. So they just need to be
Distributed.
relocated, we don't need to buy that many more. You know, just because, you know, they're all shoved to the ends of the docks, which doesn't make any sense whatsoever, but we just need to, and all they're zip tied on, so just gonna cut the zip
Well,
tie
let
and bring
me
it
ask
down.
you a
and-
question, are those mats capable, because right now, we don't have everybody using those mats right now. We don't have
Right, that's
everybody-
my point,
So if we have those mats distributed and everybody starts doing it, won't we have more crab pots than mats?
the only people that are using those mats are the charter boats.
Well,
There's not that many charter boats, you know, there's not that many charter
We
boats.
we can figure that out when he says what it would look like distributing the.
And they're not all whale watching all the time, you know, and it's only when we can use those mats is when we're whale watching or doing
Well, and I
non-trapping
assume you
fishing
wanna be
trips.
able to, I'm assuming, you guys correct me if I'm wrong, you don't wanna have to put your crab pots on the dock, on the boats at night, you wanna be able to
No,
put them on the
no,
docks, right?
no, we don't mind that at all.
Okay, you
It's
don't
having-
mind that?
No,
Okay.
that's not the issue, the issue
I
is
was
having
just
to drain
thinking,
these
like,
pots all the
No,
way down to the
that's
end of the dock.
that's where I think, we really need to have this conversation. You can't assume what you think that we're trying to do.
right.
We just wanna know how much weight can go on each
And
dock.
Chad, it may well be, and I believe it will be, that the other dock sections will not support 20 pots each section. That's what, that's just my wild guess. But, and that's why we want John to say, how many crab pots will sections, boom, 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 support?
Well,
And then-
there's 3 mats on each section.
Yes, but then there's something to do with how many crab pots can be stored on the dock. So until we get this answer from John,
Yeah,
we can talk all we want, we're not gonna get it.
but my point is, it's
By
not gonna
section,
cost
you're
the city
asking
any
for
more
by
money.
section.
Meaning,
Because we're just gonna relocate those mats.
Well, having been around marine stability and everything like that, there's a load factor, but I think the real simple question would be on those docks, and he had to calculate it out to build it and figure out the traffic, what's the maximum load per square foot? That's all you need to know,
that's it.
Yeah.
That's all
the
we know.
maximum load per
I
square foot.
would just like to remind you, I've spoken to you guys about this before, and I told you that John said he did not design the depths for the weight of the crab pots. I know you guys talked about it, but during the whole time it came up, that was never so. What that looks like, I will let him figure that out,
Just ask him what the load is, pounds per square foot.
and he will provide that.
Thank you.
And it makes absolutely no sense to have all the crab pots crowded on the edge of the dock rather than spreading them
I
out
explained that to him, I explained where your
Spreading
position
them
was.
out
I
throughout.
kind of took our conversation that you and I had.
Okay, we're gonna move on, thanks.
Mhm.
Anything else from the harbor master or the city?
No.
Okay, thank you. Unfinished
Pardon me,
business.
Chair, do you need the harbor master anymore? Can you go and finish the rest of his days off?
Sure, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you, David.
More-
Thank you, David.
Thank you.
Dave.
They did.
Self-fueling,
Well, okay, it's more than self-fueling, it's harbor fueling.
okay,
Fueling in the harbor. Remember that the city council gave us a directive, more than a suggestion. When they decided, when they were discussing the idea of just shutting down the fueling completely on the dock. And we said there's gotta be more, we can't do that without a viable alternative to do it. Anyhow, what came out of that was that we had until August or September, we, the Harbor Commission, had until August or September to get back with to them with a better plan. And, so anyhow, I've been looking into this for some time. And, the setup we have, one of the issues was that we couldn't put a fueling pump on the dock itself, and we didn't know why. But we know why now, and that is that it has been tried. And back in January of 2011, Terry Owens, who was the superintendent at that time, sent a letter to the Oregon State Marine Board to move the fueling dispensary system from dock 5. So apparently this fueling was on the dock. And move it back up to the fueling tank, next to the fueling tank on the seawall side. And that's because the whole system was too heavy for dock 5, for the fuel pump. And when they get minus tides on the south side, they'd be on the floor of the harbor. But all that weight was just pushing the dock down. And even without a fueling system being on the dock, at low tide, the dock is sitting on the floor of the harbor. So that further complicates fueling and self-fueling and harbor fueling. I did go down to Brookings Harbor and I talked to the people down there and saw their operation, because I like the fueling system that I'd seen, the fueling pump operation I had seen, which was just like you'd go to the gas station here. The problem is the existing fueling system requires a lot of actions before you turn on before you start fueling. You gotta turn on the pump. Then you gotta open up the fuel cabinet, and you gotta be able to reset the counters and so forth. So there are multiple steps, because what we're looking at, one of the things we explored was a card lock system. But a card lock system, it just requires punching in with a number, a PIN number like, and also putting your card in to do that. But in order to use that on the current system, the way it exists, there are too many actions that need to be taken that cannot be taken simply by punching in a code with your thing. But the only thing we could do with that would be to unlock the cabinet door. couldn't turn on the pump, unless the pump turn on thing is inside, but then you gotta do that. Anyhow, it gets pretty complicated to run a card lock system with the existing pump, with the existing setup that we have down here in the dock. Granted, it's labor intensive, and for whatever reason, the city's been unable to hire anybody, but they're not the only ones who can't hire anybody. Because many youngsters don't wanna work anymore.
We had some guy come in at the end of last week, but he's over with, pretty much over with, so.
In order to put a fuel system on the dock itself, first of all, that would require a new fueling dock. And we're not the only people that have a floating fuel dock. Up and down the coast, there are a number of them. Brookings Harbor is they have a fuel dock, and they have two pumps, one that does both diesel and gasoline, and then a high volume pump that probably does the bigger boats, like something like you would have, I guess. You know, something like the Progress, because they have a lot of large boats come in down there. So they got a pretty good substantial fuel dock. We wouldn't need a fuel dock any larger than what we currently have, in my opinion. And I'm not an engineer, and but I think if they had that system that we have now, if that was down on the dock, there's plenty of room to put a pump down there. And if you had a pump down there, you could do it with a code, you could do a card lock system. You punch in the PIN number, put your card in, you pump the amount of fuel you want, and then that automatically transfers and goes out. And, you know, the billing is another issue, but it's a sub-issue, I think, of all that. But that's the only way you're gonna make it simple, in my opinion, right now. The city council, and in fact, there's no way we're gonna go out and buy a fuel dock today, because I have no idea how much a fuel dock is gonna cost. And then the piping has to be changed from the tanks down. So there's gonna be an expense involved in that. There is no cost way to change the current system. So I'm not sure what there is another option. And that is for the city to create a port district, which is what this place used to be until the city bought itself out from underneath. Well, they bought it out from underneath.
Newport.
Port of Newport, we did it over.
Well, yeah, the Port of Newport, right, and they took it over from the Port of Newport. And that's gonna take years. That's gonna take years. Because first of all, the port district for here would be from north of Otter Rock up to Glendale Beach. Salisbury area, Glendale Beach. First, you gotta convince all of the property owners between here and there that they wanna be taxed to support this harbor. Then you've gotta put it on a ballot. And, you know, because they have to agree to do that. You're gonna have to come up with a port commission and then a harbor, you know, port. It's gonna take years. I can't see it.
See if the council will go for it, which is your first step.
Well, yeah, exactly, but I mean, you know, the thing is, we're kidding ourselves, I think, because it's been talked about before,
Right,
and,
I've been told that.
Yeah.
Sure.
and I just couldn't see it without knowing much about it. Once I started looking into it, there's more work there than I think anybody wants to do.
Correct.
Especially given that we have a small harbor, we don't have a lot of services, the best service we can offer people is get in your boat, 10 minutes, you could have a line in the water, less if you don't wanna go too far. So, I am frankly at a loss as to what we should tell the, city council about. I don't have an answer, and I don't think anybody else, let someone else have an answer.
I really want to thank Jack for all the time and energy he's put into researching this, because he really has spent a lot of time, and, I think it's important that we wanted to let the, city council know that, we've done our due diligence, our due work to look into it as directed.
Yeah, and I have not been to every port up and down, or harbor up and down, because I didn't think it was necessary, I can call them, you can talk to them.
We need you.
Well, you just think of the capital outlay, new dock and pumping system to free up the costs from the city a little bit. And we could come up with some kind of theoretical figure, you could look at, well, how many years is this gonna pay off?
Right.
I mean, that's,
Yeah, you gotta amortize that cost over a period of time, so, there is no immediate solution to any of this. Now, I will say that the Brookings Harbor Port people, the guy I talked to who runs the operation down there, he's not, they don't do self-fueling. Their ramp down to the fuel dock is locked, and boats have to call in. And they call in and they'll do it 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, and they'll do it, on call, off duty times. But you just can't walk down the fuel dock and run things. And even if they could walk down, they couldn't turn the pumps on. So, but he thinks it's kind of risky to do that. I don't know. In this small harbor, we've been doing not really self-fueling, but kind of sort of in some ways. I saw Tyler with his 750-gallon diesel trailer yesterday one of these days this week, when I was down at the harbor fueling up a surf rider, his boat. So it can be done, and there is a safety issue, but if you spend thousands or hundreds of thousands of dollars on a boat, you're not gonna be inclined to take chances. You're gonna follow the rules on fueling safely.
All right,
Anyhow,
Did you by any chance see what the price was?
down there, yeah, the price for gasoline was $3 and something. Which was $2 less than
How about
we did.
diesel?
Diesel was a little higher. Yeah. Now, they probably do more diesel down there than they do gasoline. But then again, I think we do more diesel here than we do gasoline.
yeah,
Well, to me, the harbor master really doesn't have that much to do down there. So it really doesn't cost the city that much more to have him help the fuel. There's not the fuel dock isn't all that busy in the first place. The harbor master's already down there.
well,
And
I don't know what that is for sure, but my thought is, you're paying a guy with a full wage, benefits. To me, I know Kim tried to hire someone, but, someone that's getting $17 or $18 an hour to pump fuel would alleviate a lot of costs. I don't know if that the harbor master can be used in other areas of the city, but I know if we could, I'm gonna find you one, I'll find you
You
one.
promised a month ago.
Well, it's kind of hard to find someone mid-season, but yeah, I think you give somebody a title and make them the dock attendant down there, and you know, some kid, I think it could be a
I'm
great
even
job.
paying more than McDonald's for this.
She's been trying to get me to do it.
Anyway, that's just my thought. Anybody else wanna add anything else to that?
But I would suggest that anybody that thinks the harbor master doesn't do much down there, go talk to the harbor master. About what he does.
I have,
Okay, because he tells me he's pretty busy running around down there doing various different things.
I've been hearing him talking and he's talking like he doesn't remember some things. I'm wondering if he ever kind of logs what he does or talks to during the day.
He does.
Okay, cause there's a lot of fluid things going on, you know?
Well, let me just say this with all due respect, he's been off for 2 days, and we're asking him to come in on his second day off without having been in the harbor at all for 2 days, not having talked to me and Carla to come in for an hour, 30 minutes to talk about something when he hasn't been in the harbor for 2 days. So that's
it's one meeting a month.
why I think, you know what I'm saying, so, I will remind him though tomorrow that we asked for a written report.
Mhm.
So I will make sure on the Monday, Carla and I will make sure on the Monday before the meeting that he has a written report.
Mhm.
Because that's one thing we didn't have when we should have, so.
Yeah.
I will say one more thing about it, and that is, for whatever reason, the city has eaten the loss, operating loss on this harbor for ages. Why we need to change all that within 3 months, I don't understand. I mean, it doesn't make sense to me.
Neither.
And I'm saying.
I'm just the flunky.
I understand what you're saying, but I'm just talking the overall, you know? And I'm not saying we shouldn't make any changes, but they gotta be reasonable and workable.
I think I think the work that Jack's done will go a long way to letting them see that you have considered it, which is pretty important, and that you're kind of like, well, you know, here's what we've explored, so.
Who's on for September? I can't remember.
I don't know, I thought you.
I love my,
It might be Commissioner Martin.
I love my briefcase at work. I'll look it up,
Can you remember?
remind everybody. Anyway, moving along, thanks again, good discussion to have, we need to talk about it.
One more thing is, at what point do we wanna take this up to the harbor, to the city
Well,
council?
I'm gonna let Kim let us know when it comes on the agenda.
Well, I would like to let you know that both the mayor and Councilor Rex will not be at the September 2nd meeting.
So we won't be discussing it.
Yeah, we don't need to.
No, okay,
Yeah.
just give us a heads up so we can make sure.
It's really up to you when you wanna present.
Okay,
The contract,
I mean, not.
September 25th, so I would try to give you something on the 16th, or 19th, whatever the heck that Saturday, Wednesday, Tuesday is. I did not have anything to do.
What does the contract have to do with it?
Because the council wanted a decision, because after the 25th, they could choose, remember, they could choose to close this or outsource it to somebody. Remember, that was the whole reason this kicked off, was the idea of that. So,
that's when the grant contract expires.
correct,
in terms of that.
the terms of that agreement, correct.
Okay, all right. I kind of sort of get that, I guess, but
so,
again, it's something that's not gonna be decided in the short term.
That was what you talked about at the last meeting, that you weren't gonna be able to, and you were gonna let the council know that you've actually done more work since then.
well, we can let them know what we found out. I mean, your next meeting is gonna be what, the 16th?
Yeah, that second,
So what time?
That Tuesday, the 16th.
Oh,
is that
I
a
understand.
16th?
Yeah.
can you see that part?
Yeah.
Wow.
Contacts.
Oh, okay.
All right, okay, we'll be in touch, see what we can figure out what we're gonna do. Under new business, just was talked about at the work session with the, city council, the harbor user fees.
Yeah. Let's see, I got this one.
And that was just Kim, just correct me, I want to make sure, that was just a talk, that there was no,
Work session,
they
nothing, no
did-
action was taken.
Well, no action was taken, except that they did make changes, and I will be bringing the draft back. They wanna have a public hearing on first reading on the 16th.
Okay, I can tell you.
I didn't know you could make changes at all.
Oh, yeah, but they didn't reach any final decision about it, but they'd always planned on adopting
I
it,
can
but
make recommendations.
Yeah, they're making-
So this recommendation, okay, I wanted to clarify that.
But they can
So-
direct me in a meeting to, as long as they reach consensus on something, which they're allowed to do, to say, okay, we reached consensus, make this change. And I had them do that before.
And you weren't gonna run it by us first?
The harbor
The
user
harbor-
fee, I'll be happy to send it to you, but that is really the council's purview and ordinance, but you get it ahead of time. I mean, but not for this, I have to run it by the attorney, but I'm happy to review what they discussed if you'd like. Oh, he's got it, there you go.
All right.
I thought that's what the purpose was tonight, for you guys to discuss what was discussed at the
Yeah,
last
what was
meeting.
discussed, one of the items was the harbor user fee and a draft ordinance regarding that. And the initial proposal was a buck a head. And then it was decided that that would bring in a lot of money, so they went up to $2 a head. That's what they ended up, that was a recommendation.
Agreeing to, right.
Yeah, they all agreed on $2. And then as far as report, there would be number of people only, no names. They don't, and that makes sense, they don't need any stuff. There's something about a late payment interest of
Yes.
percent, 1.5% a month. is that-
Right, they want to, the percent that was put in there, which I just simply took what you was doing, they want to make it match essentially the other percentages where it's a higher percent. It's like, what is some of our examples? To match one of our other ones was like 1.5% after, delinquency, that sort of thing, so.
And it could accumulate up to 18%.
Tax.
Yes, like what
What are
we
they
have.
talking about if they don't make a payment? No.
If you miss, right, if you don't
If you
follow,
miss-
if you don't file your
follow it.
taxes.
Yeah, if you
You
don't
file-
follow it.
So right now,
File the report
If you don't
and
file the
pay
Okay.
the
And-
balance due.
And the numbers would only be reported quarterly
So is that,
by boat captain.
do
We
they,
might
do
actually
they have to
go-
pay that now when they pay like their rooming tax?
we're
Do they get do they get a percentage against them if they're late?
if they're late, they get a fee and a percentage.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right.
Oh, yeah, everybody who's late on anything gets a fee and a percentage in most cases. We're looking at every 6 months, I think. As
Well,
was that was-
I
I know, that was a suggestion, but then I forget, thought, who we talked about? You and I talked about it for billing wise, because one of the things they wanted us to talk about was who's going to do it and how often. So we thought that from time
Because
wise,
of the season,
Right, it would-
it
so-
made more sense to do it twice a year rather than 4 times a year.
Okay, so that's what you're
we
gonna
will
recommend.
be
That's what
presenting
you would
it twice
recommend
a
to
year.
city
That's what
council.
we would be recommending.
And I will be also
Okay, that's
sharing
fine.
that Carla will be the one doing it.
Okay. And I'm sure she will get a significant raise to do
So-
that.
Did you do like any preliminary work, like, do you really know what the numbers are? I mean, for someone just to pick a number out, go, I think $1, well, I think $2. I mean, what is the economic impact? What are we talking
Yeah,
about?
they-
What kind of money is
They
generated?
have that.
They have that. The
Yeah.
council talked about that, Councilor Red talked about it, and they looked at the numbers. I think even Councilman
Something
Sellers
like
talked about it.
70,000
Yeah,
people.
something about, they were using based on numbers of what people have told
Could be as
them
much as
that
140,000.
Harvard brings in people-wise. And there's been several recent articles about the counts essentially, so they were using based on that, but yeah.
All right, I'm sorry.
Was that based
That-
on
that's what it
adult
is.
passengers or was it all passengers?
All passengers.
All passengers.
Even,
Youth
but we
problems.
are talking about a youth You know, like a lot of, like we talked about, remember
Yeah.
a lot of folks, so.
$2, that's 10% of what a youth pays.
Yeah.
That doesn't
it
make
seems-
So that might be
Oh, yeah,
something
yeah.
that I also, you know, we can,
Yeah.
because I know these, I thought we talked about that, but we'll talk about that because I know most charter companies don't charge as much for a youth, so it seems like they do that. They were also talking about $5 per passenger, which is what Juneau does. But Juneau's a cruise ship, so we don't want to do that. So.
That's quite that's not even a comparison.
Yeah, so, but, the youth, what is your youth cutoff, Commissioner Nick? Like, what's your?
12 and under.
12 and under, okay, so that's the same thing as Willie though, so it's probably the same thing as Foxfire 12 and under.
Then we give a discount to veterans, teachers over 60. Anybody that helps our society out, we help out as much as we can.
Okay.
And
You do
for
a
them, we're talking, it's 9%. For certain people, it's better.
I just know some businesses do. I don't want to say it out there, then you'll be flooded with logos, right?
Okay, is there anything else on
Yes.
that?
Well, on that note, we can move on to the next
Well,
item.
just a minute, I just wanna make sure anybody have any questions? It sounds to me like we're just gonna wait and see it. I kinda like to see what it looks like, but I guess I can
Yeah,
come to the
and
meeting.
just,
Well, you'll get it with the council, like, the draft is already been posted for 2 weeks now, so you can see the draft, we're just making.
And that draft was sent out with the agenda.
That's true, that draft.
and in the interest of full disclosure, I will state that Tad Mick, Beanie Robinson, and Jack O'Brien all attended the meeting, and other than to say hi, goodbye, that's all we said to them. What amounted to a quorum was there. Okay, moving on. The next item was dock leases, the draft lease and rate discussion. And they decided basically, or they will recommend basically that there'll be no retroactive collection of the fee. And they're looking at $14 a square foot on a 3-year term. And they recommended moving that on to the city council for vote.
But I'm holding off until after we get the survey.
They're gonna do another survey again.
Beanie,
I didn't catch that. You say they're looking at X amount per square foot, what these,
$14 a square foot.
the old
Linear foot,
Linear.
linear foot.
linear foot.
Okay,
That's-
linear foot, okay.
That's what I was gonna say, the old leases were linear.
Okay, well, then that's what okay. That part hasn't changed.
I think they
Okay.
did say.
I just use square foot because the way I
I
know it.
think they didn't really distinguish between, it just said $14.
It should be
but we know.
Yeah, it's a linear foot, yeah, you're right.
I
Now
actually
that you
know that.
mentioned, I appreciate that, that makes more sense. Even as I read it, it didn't make sense to me, but. Okay, then they talked about tree permitting. A draft ordinance, well, that's what they were talking about. And basically, and I think what happened, well, the reason is, when they cleared the land, I mean, literally cleared it for this storage
They
facility.
didn't have a permit at all. They didn't go through land use and have anything.
They were talking about, the number of trees on the property and so, but anyhow, they got something on that, the attorney's gonna review it. And then basically what it amounts to, is if you wanna cut down any trees in your property, do it now, because once it goes in, you're going to have to get a permit to do it.
Do it now.
it's very informative, Jess.
When he's done with that, can you drive back to the hundred? He's done for, can we drive back quick, because I wanna make sure you guys know of one particular thing.
Okay,
Okay, and then they also talked about the Collins parking lot, and I'm not sure, I don't know where it is, unless it's the one just west of McKim's old house. Okay, that tiny little, well, that's why I looked at her.
Formerly owned by John.
It's a tiny little parking lot, and I don't know what they're gonna do with it. And they're checking to see if gravel is okay, so with the.
We can't. Per code. Has to be
Dark
paid.
city rules.
thanks, I don't need to know about that.
Okay, and then there was something else about harbor parking and some,
The lots, the Gregerson properties.
Oh, yeah. Oh, that's right, that's what it was, you know, that they had talked about before. And apparently there are
There were 5 total,
five total,
but
okay.
the council last year decided to look at the 4. But now they wanna look at,
Now so they're still looking at numbers, basically.
yes,
So that's
but
all,
not the parking ones we want.
that's all I have on that.
Thank you, Jack, I appreciate all of you guys attending.
A quick note on harbor, so one other change that was suggested is in the harbor use fee ordinance, it specifies as one of the requirements, the attorney said it has to specify the types of uses it would be used for. It's gonna stay in the harbor fund and it's gonna be used for these things. One of the things, and that's why the attorney's doing this review on it, is one of the counselors has suggested putting some language in there saying that the cost of enforcing the ordinance would come out of the harbor user fee. And I'm not sure if we can do that, so
Probably not if it's dedicated funds.
so that's what I'm thinking, but that's why I said I would have to run that by the attorney, because I'm like, I don't know where it's at. The attorney had already seen the draft and they approved the draft, but with this change, I'm like, I feel like the attorney needs to weigh in on whether or not we can do that, because that's generally not, that's generally cost of services type situation. That's what the fine's for.
Okay,
I think if it's called a harbor user fee, everybody that uses the harbor should be getting a fee.
They should,
What are we gonna do about the guides?
yeah,
How are we gonna police
you mean
those?
the ones down here? That's a very good question, and I think that's something that has to still be finalized.
I mean, you can't really call it a charter user fee,
No,
right?
you can't,
You can't call it head tax.
can't.
well, those guys are paying their $500 a year and going 5 people a day out there fishing. Okay.
I mean, it's amazing how much these gift shops and restaurants benefit from the harbor.
Well,
The entire city benefits from the harbor.
do you remember what I told you when we did our walkabout? So I just wanna let everybody know. Remember that work session that happened about 6 months ago where the council discussed revenue options? And they had a whole list of things, they had to come up with top 5. Number 1 was harbor user fee. Number 2, so once we get this settled, then I have to move on to number 2, which is basically a transactional tax. So a sales tax, a transactional tax, food and beverage tax, whatever you wanna call it, but a tax on everything else. So it's coming, they just decided that the harbor was going to get the first.
Carry the bill.
So there is a lot of people that acknowledge what you're saying, Commissioner, and that's why they wanna move on to that. Now, we do have a couple new counselors, so I think that'll be probably one of the things where they might have to discuss whether or not we wanna move, is this still what everybody wants to do, but since the majority, I think, probably still does, they might do that, but I really don't know. And that, by the way, that issue about who constitute a harbor user basically is also a question I asked the attorney, so thanks for asking that. Because we have another user who, that's why I'm waiting for the survey, there's some debate about whether that property is actually her property or the harbor. So, and according to the last survey that was done in 2012, there's some ambiguity, if you will, including on the trade winds there. So the new survey, they know about the 2012, I said, we're trying to address this ambiguity.
You're talking about harbor or the dock leases, correct?
That, but also who, if, Well Eco Excursions, if they don't truly own, they're on the water. So is that a tax lot that's theirs and they bought it when they bought the thing? And that's part of that stuff that she says it is and that she has paperwork that says it is. But I really wanna have a jumping off point, which is a survey if I need to have it.
Dee and I have some background information on that.
Besides sledding,
Besides what?
sledding down the hill.
Attack. I mean, you're talking about the old Jimco property. I mean, because that was something my dad was in,
We know that, what is it, the Monty, what was that part that you asked me about? Of the other dogs,
It was, can't think of his last
I
name.
know, can't think of his name.
Monty was,
But wasn't that always like, there was always discussion going back and forth who actually owned?
well, and Carla had told me something that apparently that was part of, do you remember what you told me? Of course you remember what you told me, that why Carrie ended up with those dogs, why they are supposedly hers.
yeah, and all of that information, when we gave everyone the lease and the termination of the leases, we also provided where the city had an agreement with those stocks at that end, like you're speaking of, and how that was not being subject to a lease, it was determined that it was on their property.
Right.
But then the last survey that the city did prior to when they were gonna do the lease termination and do their walkway, there was by that survey, in fact, everyone got a copy of the memo that Tori Murray, the former recorder, kind of did a little timeline thing on that, where that was something that was coming up that maybe it wasn't necessarily all on private property.
And that would be important to know, not just from a dog lease standpoint, but for a harbor use fee standpoint. So we have to see, who can we charge? Can we only charge people who are using the harbor or our docks, or how that looks? So those are the two things the attorney is sitting on, yeah.
Well, it's use of the harbor, because if you talk about docks only, then that eliminates the guides.
Right, well, ultimately, what you call it will be
Legally,
defined
Legally
legally,
defined.
yes.
Well, the guides are using the boat ramp and the boat
Yeah, they're
ramp
using
dock.
the facilities.
They're using the facility as much as anybody else.
The bathrooms there.
Yeah.
The bathrooms,
Yeah.
the
Cleaning
carcass, the
stations,
carcasses are huge.
Yeah,
Yeah, the whole.
okay,
That's why you bump them up to 5, and they also pay the 100 for the dog, if they just do it for a year or so. Do you remember how many actually paid that? I wanna say 6.
Because I don't do the licensing, I don't know, but I know.
There's 5 or 6 that actually paid that.
So, on that lease carries, what I can remember, and Dad arguing with everybody out there, the west end or north end of those docks where the under fish packers used to be. And before the bay was dredged, the property line went out to mean low water. And it included, like I said, the north end of that area. And then somewhere, our docks weren't as long as what Cary has now, but somewhere on the south end, they transitioned into a harbor lease, the whole run
Yeah.
down there.
That's at Monty.
Then that was, yeah, kind of where the Whale Museum is, that area. Yeah, that owner, property owner, actually, just before the leases were terminated, he was a new owner and he entered into a very short-term lease for that portion of that dock.
all right, seeing that at 7:15, we're gonna wrap everything up here. At this point, I'll just go around and, any commissioner concerns, Tad, you wanna?
I think we've covered it.
Okay, thank you. I think for me, it's really important if this harbor use fee goes through, to make it very clear where the money's gonna go. And I think as a consumer, people that are paying that extra $2, you know, I think, I don't know, you know what I'm saying?
I'll be paying it.
I want the charter office to be able to explain in detail, you know, people ask why all of a sudden the pump, what it's for. So
That is one of the things that council did talk about, was like putting that into place and explaining why and what the money will be used for. They can't be real specific because they don't know exactly,
Yeah, but just, I
but
just think
we can educate that.
from a PR point, and education is really important.
and I would also urge the city council not to make it so burdensome on the boat captain that it's gonna be more of a pain in the neck than it is going to be.
I don't think we plan to. I do need to look at what the form's gonna look like, but I think we're not. And if we're doing it only twice a year, which I'm sure the council will go for, that's not.
Yeah, but even
too
so, right, and then, you know, during the discussion, during that meeting, they did try to keep it simple.
Absolutely.
It's gonna be burdensome because it's gonna cost us
Absolutely.
business.
Oh, yeah.
It's not the 2 times a year or 4 times a year every month or, you know, it's gonna cost the city business, it's gonna cost everybody.
I don't know if I brought this up last time or not, I can't remember when the official tsunami came in. But down there, was it Winchell Street where the flagpoles are and the path going up there? I would say that if you had a short notice earthquake tsunami there, I think that somehow it ought to be posted that there's a footpath evacuation trail going up there to get into high ground. Because you are not gonna get all those cars out of that parking lot whatsoever.
No.
You know, and then maybe exit, just give them a little direction.
It's a great idea.
You did bring that up last time. I did make a note. I wrote a note again, so thank you for the reminder. We will get some tsunami signs down there.
Thank you.
Are there other places in the city that could benefit from them as well?
I have a debate about that, and maybe that's something we can discuss at the council, because there is a couple of thoughts that we don't wanna put 2 signs up, because then we'll have too many signs and we'll be a city flooded with signs.
Well, I think
we
it's
have that
pretty
discussion.
darn important sign if I was
Yeah.
gonna put a sign up.
Yeah, you just have to be careful where you put them, because ODOT doesn't want any more signs, even if they're, people, this is gonna save your life, so they were opposed to doing that.
All right, well, I'm gonna go ahead and adjourn the meeting, and thank you, Cam and Carl, for being here, thank the harbor master for coming, thank you, everybody else. I really like to say thank you to Joe Cannon for coming tonight, and I really appreciate you wanting to hear what we're.
I know that you closed public comments, but this gentleman showed up. I don't know if he had anything he wanted to say.
Everything, Stu, you have anything you need to say?
Well, I was just gonna comment on the fuel dock thing, is that I fish in a small place in Canada, and what they do is, they have a season, and there's somebody there to pump the fuel and such. But during the off season, there's a phone number, and you can call and get somebody to come down. Now, I know your season is usually what, June through October, maybe? Okay, but they do have a regular person during the high season and such on there, and the rest of the time it's for phone calls, and they post the hours, and if you come in at 2 in the morning, yeah, you're gonna have to call somebody or wait.
I have my.
And I waited for them to open at 6 in the morning and such, because that's when
Yes.
people come on. So, as far as having somebody here, it sounds like it's gonna be a bit of a problem with your harbor master. He's busy doing other stuff, right?
Partly, but I mean, right now he's
Yeah.
working from 9 to 6. But, so he has the 9 until noon where he does maintenance, general maintenance stuff.
Mhm.
Then he takes lunch, because then he's gotta be nearby for that harbor, that dock from 1 to 6.
Yeah, there's
Yeah.
times when boats come in to get fuel, and I'm
Right.
sure that the charter boats and such, they're not gonna, they're gonna fuel up in the morning, or they're gonna fuel up
Sure.
in the evening and such on there, the rest of it's just gonna be odd people.
I think has the fueling hours been working for you guys?
Much better. Oh,
Okay.
Yeah, and that seems
Yeah.
to take care of that
Yeah.
particular
Well,
problem on there.
and normally we have a person to do that, so you wouldn't actually, so he would be doing other stuff and not necessarily that, so you had to really adjourn to that.
Okay.
Yeah, we did.
Did she back it down? I didn't hear her backing gavel.
I can do it again, Mom.
Hey, listen, one of the things we need to talk about though is overwintering. We can do that in the end of September meeting, but remember, we always had to go to leave because of the fingers, right? Well, we're not having to take out fingers anymore. So we're thinking, do we wanna let people stay who wanna stay, and if they do, then it's like, well,
You're on your own.
You're on your own, exactly, so we need to talk about
You
that
know,
before
sometimes
the season
all
ends and,
takes is
you know, do,
another
you know,
10
'cause
feet.
what do
Because-
you wanna do?
And, you know, no offense to the harbor master, he's never spent a winter here, he doesn't know what, you know, what.
Right, and he is, I mean, he didn't have a thought about that, except that we were all like, well, we're not gonna be taking finger shots, what's that gonna look like this year?
I just thought everybody
None of
could
us
stay,
know.
everybody will stay.
Right, but there is a risk to people staying, because I've been told that people, those small boats leave because of the surges.
Well,
That's true, there's no difference.
But there's no,
Well,
You know,
and that's fine,
if
that's their choice,
nobody,
they decide to leave.
yeah, nobody sails, you know.
so I don't see any, and that's why I wanna say it, unless you guys see anything, I don't see any reason to have them leave.
It's so, well, it's so much easier just put your boat on
Well,
a trailer and then have the responsibility of worrying about it trying to.
You're gonna find out the majority of the guys
new
who pull the
people.
boat.
Right, but I just think
Getting
usually
involved
we
in
tell
your-
them they have to leave, I don't think we should do
Bring
that,
some
we should just let
I
them
don't-
stay if they
Bring
want.
fresh
That's-
I don't think so, but.
Because
You
guys
some
okay with
people
that?
just
Yeah.
Yeah, it's-
Structure and the same track.
My pen, my hand, and my purse all over me.
By the way, thank you.